Since 1983, FAME has helped business and education work for Maine. Contact the authority, the Finance Authority of Maine. You're watching Maine Biz Sunday, Maine's business news source.
We're back with Paul LePage, Republican nominee for governor. All right, we're going to try to get into some more specifics now. We talked about some general, philosophical, if you will, kind of approaches. Now we're going to do some more specifics. Let's talk about taxes. You propose reducing the corporate income tax in Maine, and I'm sure our listeners are going to love to hear that, especially all those business folks out there listening to this program every Sunday morning. So tell us your plans to reduce those taxes, and how realistic do you think it is going to be able to create that? And just for context, let me put this graphic up for folks. Right now, Maine's corporate income tax is a graduated tax with rates ranging from 3.5% to 8.93%. You would propose cutting the tax to 5% for incomes of $30,000 to $500,000 and 4% for incomes in excess of $500,000. So how are you going to pull that off?
Okay, the 4% is a wish list, and that's at the tail end of accomplishing the front end. The front end is, I have found in Waterville, what happens with the reaction of the private sector to the public sector is when the business community sees you going in the right direction and lowering and making efforts to get more efficient in the government sector, investment will come in. They start investing.
Okay.
We lowered our taxes 13%, and most of it came from, the real lowering of the taxes didn't come from cutting services. We never cut services. We got more efficient. And from there, the business sector saw it and said, hey, we got the same mentality, we're like-minded, and so they come in and they invested $200 million in the city of Waterville in the depth of the worst recession since the Great Depression, and that's how you do it.
Okay. I'm going to ask you a follow-up about sales tax. The Maine Development Foundation and Maine State Chamber of Commerce did their recent survey of several thousand businesses throughout the state, and the businesses then ranked like 1 through 20 what the things that most negatively impact their business. Sales taxes is way down here in around the 15 range, and they didn't rate it very high in terms of a major impact to them. How do you feel about possibly increasing or broadening sales tax to build our tax base, revenue base?
If the state of Maine wants the taxes increase, I'm the wrong guy.
So the answer would be, I think, no.
No.
Okay, but you also oppose see how I pick that up? You also oppose local option sales taxes.
Yeah.
Why? I mean, if it's local and it's the local control and they've decided, why not let them do it?
The problem with that is you create an adversarial condition between communities. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that adversarial is the direction we need to be going. I think it's what we need to be doing is get away from being adversarial to the private sector, adversarial between communities. We already are suffering in the local community because of an inefficient state government. Everything, as I said earlier, everything goes downhill. Mm-hmm. So they'll pass laws, unfunded, and have the communities pay for it. You won't see that in the LePage administration.
So, but that's one example of where local control doesn't work.
So
okay.
At the local control,
make sure I understood that.
Right, exactly. So what happens at local control, if one selects, the problem with the option sales tax is we have so many small rural communities against so few service centers. Obviously, the service centers are the ones that would opt to take a sales tax option. Mm-hmm. However, they're also the highest tax communities in the state already. And what happens, a lot of rural communities take advantage of the service centers. I see it in rural patrol, for instance, our jails, which are run at county level and state level. So we really need to take a look at pay as you go and pay the real cost of services provided.
Okay. I've talked a little bit about taxes. Now we're going to talk about, that's the revenue side, and we're going to talk about investing side too. We have a video question from one of our viewers who's going to submit a question, and it is about kind of asking candidates how they would invest in Maine. So watch this video.
Hi, my name is Joe Chandler, and I'm president of Maine Biotechnology Services here in Portland, Maine. And I have a question for the candidates. That is, what are your plans to help expand the technology sector in the state of Maine, such as the biotechnology or wind power or biomass production? And what would you do to see that the educational programs in the state of Maine will meet the employment demands in the future?
Okay, that's a good question. Number one, I believe that the best thing the state can do is work on lowering its energy costs, lowering its health care costs, and bringing in common sense regulations. You do that, and the private sector sees you as a positive influence, not an adversary to business, but a pro-business administration. They will invest in Maine. If you work and partner with the private sector, they will come. If they think that they're the adversary, they'll stay away. Education system, as I said earlier, we need to reform education from the standpoint is we need to prepare our kids for the next job in Maine.
So that's going to take investment, and that's not going to be private. We're going to need a public sector investment, right?
Yeah, well, it could be private as well.
Right, but
it's
still,
a partnership.
To improve our public education, aren't we going to need to spend more?
I don't know that we need to.
Okay.
We need to. For instance, we have a tourism industry here, but we don't have tourism classes at a university system or the community college system or even in a high school.
Why not?
So maybe let's change the curriculum.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is changing, just simply changing curriculum. As I said earlier with charter schools, you have charter schools that you educate, the math, the English, the basic civics, history, and then you bring in specialized industry-specific type of specialization in your public schools and charter schools.
Well, let me ask one minute follow-up on the charter school question, because that's an interesting subject there. It's why don't we have charter schools in Maine? I mean, it's interesting, obviously. There are different groups that have opposed it. What do you think about that?
I think that the groups that are opposing it are teachers' unions.
That's one, but rural small communities do too.
Some rural small communities are opposing it, and those that have opposed it in the past, having looked into some of them, like folks in Washington County, they're concerned that they're going to lose
brain drain.
A brain drain.
They'll lose their kids.
And let me tell you, I think that's just the opposite way of looking at it. If we're not providing a service or a curriculum that our kids can learn from and want to learn from, then why is it a brain drain when you force them to learn something they're not interested in?
Okay. I'm going to move quickly to regulations, because that's a big question that comes up all the time with our businesses. It's usually about the third highest on their list of things that are really impacting their business. At a recent gathering of Republicans in Yarmouth, you described how state agencies should work. You said instead of having people going around enforcing regulations, I would rather have customer-friendly state employees going out and helping you abide by the regulation. I don't mind tough regulations. I just dislike the adversarial attitude of our state.
Correct.
So talk a little bit more about that.
Okay.
Can we do both?
Yeah, I think we can do both. As a matter of fact, my intent is to go out and find the best possible minds to head up all our agencies, with the idea that the word profit is not a negative, it's a positive. That's a culture change in Augusta. And so from there, what we do is we prepare a booklet of regulations. We hand it to the proposed businessman and say, this is what you've got to live under. If you can live under this booklet, bring in your plan, we'll give you a permit, and then go do your business. Then we'll come around, make sure you're following the rules.
Okay, good. We're going to have to wrap right there. We're going to keep you around for an afterthought segment that can be seen on the web. We're going to talk a little bit more about your support for offshore drilling and energy policy issues. We're going to talk about the unfunded employee retirement system, what you think about that. And, of course, I have to ask you why you hate buffaloes. Stick around. You can catch more of this discussion in our exclusive Afterthought segment seen only on the web. We'll keep Mr. LePage around to drill down even deeper on regulations, taxes, and energy costs. So we'll see how he wants to balance the budget and more. Go to mainbiz.biz and click on the Maine Biz Sunday link. We'll be right back.
Maine Biz Sunday is made possible in part by funding provided by the Finance Authority of Maine.